I do not believe that the US military will stand for a war against Iran. And the reason is because they know that US forces in the Middle East are way too vulnerable, can be so easily targeted by Iran, both on land and at sea. They're sitting ducks. They're not going to go to war against Iran and suffer the kind of losses that they know they would suffer for nothing. We need to think about the war state, the national security state, by which I mean the set of national security bureaucracies, starting with the Pentagon, the military services, and then NSA, CIA. I used to say CIA first. Now I think maybe NSA has to come first. So these are the core bureaucracies that make up the national security state. We need to think about them as though they were a corporation. They're nothing more than a corporation that sells war, and now with the NSA surveillance. And so what they're interested in is maintaining a rising demand for their product, and of course, rising, profit in the form, in this case, it's not profit, of course, from selling to the public through the market, but rather getting the congressional appropriations. And I don't think we should ever forget, these are the most powerful bureaucracies the world has ever known. They dispose of so much money. They buy off so many other institutions so easily, so completely, that they are unchallengeable politically in this country. And until that changes, we can expect that those people will call the shots on issues such as going to war with Iran. The United States the American people have been led down the garden path by a group of people that include the neoconservatives in the Bush administration and the Israelis, to believe that Iran has had and may still have a nuclear weapons program, a secret nuclear weapons program. This false narrative was conveyed to the American people primarily through an intelligence dossier, a set of documents that were falsified, which appeared in 2004 initially, and over a period of years have played a central role in conveying through the news media and through the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, a false story about the Iranians having a covert nuclear weapons program. And later, a few years later, a second round of false intelligence was put into operation beginning 2008, 2009. The Israelis turned over a whole new set of intelligence reports and documents to the IAEA, which have then served as the basis for a notorious, in my view, sensational report issued by the IAEA in November of 2011. That report asserted that the IAEA had information from member states that Iran had indeed had a nuclear weapons program and might have continued that nuclear weapons program well after 2003. In this case, there is no evidence that has surfaced that can discredit the false intelligence surrounding this alleged Iranian nuclear weapons program. nothing has surfaced in the news media. Nothing has been reported by the IAEA. I am literally the only journalist who has written stories suggesting that, not just suggesting, reporting that this information, this intelligence, is falsified. There is no other source that has challenged this narrative. The significance of this conspiracy of false intelligence, the creation of a false intelligence dossier, is that it is indeed a model for what could, and indeed without significant opposition or pressure from concerned citizens, is likely to happen again and again and again. But I talk about how both the United States and Israel were carrying out anti-Iran policies, not because there was a genuine threat, not because they had any real evidence of any kind, that there was a threat of proliferation of nuclear weapons or other weapons of mass destruction, but for political reasons that had nothing to do really with Iran. I mean, it did have something to do with Iran, but it was not because Iran was really doing anything to inspire a sense of threat. So we're going forward to the George W. Bush administration, 2001. That, of course, brings into power a group of neoconservatives who are by now very familiar, I'm sure, to all of you. Vice President Dick Cheney was not a neoconservative himself. He was not part of that inner core, but he patronized them, he supported them. He had advisors who were certainly part of the neoconservative movement. Scooter Libby, David Wormser, people who were extremely close to the Israeli point of view, who worked very hard to promote Israeli interests as they understood it. In the Pentagon, of course, there was another whole group of neoconservatives. Paul Wolfowitz being the most prominent, Douglas Feith under him, the guy who was in charge of policy under Wolfowitz, and others. But those were the key people, and there was John Bolton in the State Department. He was the one who was the neoconservative, who was really the administration's policymaker on Iran. He was the one who traveled to Israel more than once during 2003 and 2004, unauthorized visits to Israel. They were not approved by the State Department, the Near East part of the State Department. Normally, any visit to a foreign country has to be approved by the regional bureau, in this case, the Near East Bureau of the State Department. They didn't approve it, he went anyway. He met secretly with the head of Mossad, the Israeli foreign intelligence agency. Unauthorized meeting. What does that mean? It means that there was no formal record of what they discussed. There was no diplomatic cable that went back to the State Department that reported on the meetings between Bolton and the head of Mossad. 3 weeks, roughly, can't characterize it more precisely, but a few weeks after that first of those unauthorized meetings, in June of 2003, something very important happened. Mossad created a new office, the purpose of which was to influence the perceptions of the Iranian nuclear program. In other words, they were creating a propaganda office within the International Intelligence Agency of Israel to manipulate world opinion about the Iranian nuclear program. As we now see the official position of the Obama administration, I believe that it will propel this country into a period of unprecedented danger with regard to Iran, in which both sides, both the United States and Iran, will raise the ante, will escalate the tensions with the other side in a series of tit-for-tat moves We've seen a little bit of that in the past, during the Bush administration especially. I think we'll see something much more serious if this policy continues. And that's why we now are in a fix in terms of these nuclear negotiations, because the United States government is taking a position that is extremely unrealistic, making a demand that couldn't possibly be accepted by Iran. If it was accepted by an Iranian government, it would ensure that that government would be rejected by Iranian voters, I guarantee you. I mean, they could not possibly accept that. So it's a deal breaker, and if this continues, as we now see the official position of the Obama administration, I believe that it will propel this country into a period of unprecedented danger with regard to Iran, in which both sides, both the United States and Iran, will raise the ante, will escalate the tensions with the other side in a series of tit-for-tat moves. We've seen a little bit of that in the past, during the Bush administration especially. I think we'll see something much more serious if this policy continues.
In your book, you trace the influence of Israel and the various agents in the State Department from way back when. Is that still the case?
Absolutely. I mean, there are positions that clearly have been assigned automatically to people who are bound to be more sympathetic to Israel and who have shown their sympathy for Israel. I mean, this is a long-standing problem.
What's the solution to that one?
Pardon?
What's the solution to that? Divorce Israel?
Certainly there has to be a much stronger movement to demand a different policy in the Middle East than there has been. I think that's the only way that's going to change. Well, my next book, I know, is going to be about the national security state and how its nature is such that invariably, inevitably, the bureaucracies of the national security state, i.e. DOD, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the CIA and the NSA, to begin with, automatically will choose a course of action which is best suited to enhance their power and their profits, meaning their congressional appropriations, and not the course of action which is best suited to the real interests of the American people. And in fact, I would argue that in virtually every case, if not in every case, there's a direct clash between those two alternatives. And so that's the point that I want to make in this